Hello guys, it's still learning English language with Uncle AY. So we're still very much looking at the topic clause, and the last video we started by looking at the second type of clause, which is a subordinate clause, and we looked at what a noun clause is, from the subjective point of view. So right now we'll be looking at noun clause from the objective point of view. So what is an object? An object is also called the receiver of an action. So it comes from behind to receive the verb or the action in the sentence. So that said, I have questions that have been reeled off on the board. So number one here says, I like all the students who are serious. I like all the students who are serious. So what are we supposed to do here? Now the clue is this: object of the verb. So we're supposed to find out the object of the verb in the sentence, that is the object that is receiving the action of the verb as such from this sentence, and of course put it down here as a grammatical name before we now move over to the grammatical function. So that said, again, the question is, I like all the students who are serious. So what is our noun clause here from the objective point of view? So let's not forget what a clause is again, and let's not also forget what a subordinate clause is. So let me start by reminding us again that a clause is a group of words that does contain a finite verb. And because it contains a finite verb, it may or may not make a complete sense, idea, thought, or expression. And you see, the reason for this is because there are two types of clause, right? The very first one, what we talked about in the previous video, which was the independent of the main clause. So this right here is a subordinate clause, and an example of the subordinate clause is what we're looking at now, which is a noun clause. And the definition of a subordinate clause is that it cannot stand on its own, despite the fact that it possesses a finite verb. It's unable to make that clear-cut expression, idea, or thought. So we have to look for the noun clause here that does not make a complete sense, despite the fact that it possesses a finite verb, but then from the objective point of view. So what is our object here? Again, I like all the students who are serious. So let's not forget that our object has to come from behind a bit to receive the verb. So what is coming from behind to receive the verb? So let's identify the verbs in the sentence. So this is our first verb in like, right? And then we go all the way. No verb. So this is our second verb in ARE. This is an auxiliary verb, and this is just before the end of the sentence. So since we have a first verb, right, then it means that all of this here, right, including the verb before the end of the sentence, has to come to receive what? This particular verb, from the subject. But since we are doing the object, so all of this, right, receives the very action in like. So let's put this down as a grammatical name. So since we know that it's a noun clause, right, and the clue here says from the objective point of view, right, then we have it to be all the students who are serious is, end of quote here, is the noun clause. But then for the grammatical function, right, we ask ourselves the question, what is the function of everything we highlighted here from the grammatical name? That is all the students who are serious. So the function definitely would be, since we are looking at it from the objective point of view, then we have to just put it here. So all of this becomes, it functions as the objects of the verb. So the verb in question here would be what? Like, open quotation, and then we include like, end of quotes. So it's very, very easy, because in the build up to what looks like our noun clause as an object, right, we'll find out that there is of course a verb here, auxiliary verb. I stated that earlier, right, in ARE. So all the students who are serious, this is not a complete expression, despite the fact that it possesses a finite verb. There has to be more to it. So this right here is our noun clause. So let's look at the second sentence here, which says they don't know why we are doing this. They don't know why we are doing this. So what exactly is the grammatical name here? Obviously the grammatical name here is the noun clause, but then we have to look for the noun clause from the objective point of view. So what is the object as a noun clause here? So that would be of course the object has to receive a verb, so you have to be very careful. So this is a verb here in don't know, right? And this is another verb here, are. These are an auxiliary verb, by the way. So let's not forget that an object comes from behind to receive the verb. So right here, all of this makes up, our objects. Why? Because this is a verb here. So let's not forget that object has to come from behind to receive what? The verb. So this is the first verb here, right, which is part of the subject. But since you're not dealing with the subjective case, we're talking about the object. Look, this is the focus here. So it has to be why we are doing this. And look at this, WHY. The last video I talked about, a noun clause popularly introduced by some subordinating conjunctions, and one of the subordinating conjunctions I mentioned was why. So there is also who, whose, that's, whatever, amongst others. So that said, why we are doing this. Let's not forget that this is a verb too, right? So the definition of a subordinate clause, it cannot stand on its own. It cannot make a clear-cut expression despite the fact that it possesses a finite verb. So there's a finite verb here. So when you look at this sentence, it says why we are doing this. Why we are doing this. It is not comprehensive enough because it lacks substance. It lacks something that would outrightly turn it into a proper sentence. But then it has a finite verb. So this right here is our noun clause. Why we are doing this. So let's write this down as a grammatical name. So it becomes why we are doing this. So we here is our noun. I told us last time that there's no difference between a noun and a pronoun. So a noun is the name of any person, animal, place, or thing. Then a pronoun, a word used instead of a noun. So this right here is our main noun in the sentence, and then this here is a subordinating conjunction pointing out the noun. And then when you relate it to the rest of your sentence, right, including the verb are doing, right, and then you get to this point, it makes up as a noun clause. So that said, why we are doing this is the noun clause. So what is the function of now we are doing, why we are doing this, I beg your pardon. So that would be it functions as the objects. Let's not forget the focus there. Object now. Object of what? Object of the verb. So what will be the verb in question here? So the verb in question would be do not know or don't know. It's the same thing. So this right here is a contracted negative. Don't know. So it's same as do not know, right? So when it is do not know, that's like the positive. When that said, don't know. So this right here is our answer. Again, here is 1 mark, right? Grammatical function always carries 2 marks. This right here is 1 mark. The grammatical function is 2 marks. So this is 6 in all if you attempted it successfully. So that said, this is all there is to an object of the verb under noun phrase, and of course under the auspices of subordinate clause. So the next video will be talking about complement of the subject, and I'll do well to explain that as well as reel off examples just like I did for object of the verb. So like I always say, do tell somebody about what you've learned. Don't forget to like, don't forget to share, and of course don't forget to put a comment in the comment section, and I'll be seeing you in my next video. Thank you for your attention.